Hey, how's it going everyone? Today I'm going to be taking a look at the 3 big titles being released this holiday season, and specifically their betas and my experiences with them. Of course, the whole point of this is to be subjective, but in this video I'll be ranking these betas from as objective a view as possible. I'll just spoil it now. If it were up to me, COD would be the best, Battlefield second, and Halo a lowly third. But if existing has taught me anything, it's that personal preference and confirmation bias takes precedence over most fact-based and objective observations. So let's dive into these betas and get down to how each of them fare in their respective franchise. So let's start off with Battlefield 2042, the beta lightest on content but heaviest on controversy. Battlefield has had a few rough games to say the least. A spin-off title, which may as well have been scrapped if not for the inclusion of Death Grips, a solid entry which lacked meaningful change for the franchise, and a brighter, more colorful entry which also lacked meaningful change for the franchise. Battlefield needs to have a good entry this year, and well, you know what's coming next. Based on my experience with the beta, this ain't it. The audio and visuals have not improved at all since Battlefield 1, and honestly in some places, 2042 looks worse than BF5. And how could it not? Content creators and enthusiasts with the most ludicrous of setups on PC could hardly achieve over 100 FPS in the game, with constant stuttering and insane frame drops during high intensity moments. The console versions of the game didn't fare much better, achieving a decent frame rate, but with horrific seizure-inducing screen blinking and artifacting, this being even worse on the Xbox Series X. I'm fine with the game looking the way it does, but if the official gameplay trailers for the game clearly have the same frame drops and stuttering issues, what the hell are we doing here? I know how messy game development is, especially now with just how insanely complicated these AAA games are, and how that conflicts with wanting to get a competing product out there this holiday season. But god dude, just delay this for the optimization alone. Now how about how the game plays? Well, at first I was extremely happy. The game was snappy, gave us tactical sprint a la Modern Warfare, and just had a good general flow to its gameplay. Gone was the slow, almost floppy movement of the previous Battlefield games, and this, a more Call of Duty style of gunplay, is my preference, which reflected in how well I could perform compared to previous Battlefields, even with the low frame rate. Naturally, I was over the moon being able to finally accrue meaningful scorelines in a Battlefield game, but as I returned to older Battlefields once the beta ended, I was left thinking, how was the change in gunplay an objectively good thing? The slow, sluggish movement teamed with intricate and finely tuned animations made for an experience like no other, only to be found in the Battlefield games. So while I personally have fun with the gameplay, it's become more and more clear to me that the core feeling of a Battlefield game is simply missing here in the gunplay. There's still a myriad of vehicles, wide open vistas, and treacherous terrains, so it's certainly still a Battlefield game, it just doesn't really feel like it. This is felt through some other additions, like the completely nonsensical specialist system. Like, why is this even here? The customization in BF5 was fine. Why not just keep that if you want some variety? All the specialist system does is confuse the shit out of you while you're playing. It seems like there will be a faction system like in Call of Duty so that you're never fighting the same specialists that are available to your team, but like, why is the system even here? Not to mention the specialists themselves are complete garbage characters, even compared to Call of Duty's operators. I know there's been some debate about the Crisis-style attachment system, but honestly, I think it's fine. But thinking about it, the Berserk movement compared to prior titles, the Specialist, the attachment system, none of this screams futuristic to me. It just feels like they plopped it slightly into the future to make it seem like they were doing more to the franchise than they actually were. All they really seem to do is flanderize it by giving it Warzone-esque gunplay, arbitrary specialists, and reheated BF4 weapons and vehicles with nothing of note to speak of. I mean, they called C4 C5. No, I'm not kidding. C5, get it? Cause it's the future now. No, it doesn't do anything different from C4, get the fuck out of here. So next up is Vanguard, easily the most boring of the big 3. I talked a decent amount about Battlefield, but really Vanguard can be summarized in one sentence. It certainly is a Call of Duty game. Jokes aside, there's honestly not much to discuss about this game if you played the past 2 Call of Duties. It carries over the visuals, smooth PC and console performance, gunplay, and gun customization from Modern Warfare 2019, while having more traditional maps, progression, and perks like Black Ops Cold War. I think the game feels absolutely awesome to play, and the more guns I unlocked, the more I found myself really enjoying all of them for what they were. Buzzsawing with the Thompson, surgically slicing with the MP40, chunking with the bar, and lasering with the STG, it was all joy. Despite of course there being some clear balance discrepancies, the gunsmith was a blast too. Yeah, maybe it does go a bit too far with the well, you know. Even so, transforming a gun into something that feels genuinely different from the default weapon as you see it change visually into something almost completely new feels rewarding, not to mention well paced. With the maps, I think they got the job done. Not too special, but not too bad either. Red Star is your classic big boy map for longer matches and high play counts. Hotel is small yet layered with a cacophony of explosions. Eagle's Nest is a cozy, mid-sized map with some interesting shortcuts and pathways, and Gavutu is simply awful in every way. Honestly, I struggle to find damning issues with the game that can't be explained away by saying it's a beta build. Graphical glitches, broken spawns, the sun. Really, the core issue with Vanguard is that it's just a Call of Duty game and not much else. What you see is what you get, and for some people, maybe that's all they want. A safe purchase knowing they'll get a decent experience similar to what they've had before. I suppose wanting sweeping changes in the first game on a new console generation is asking a bit much, but going back to World War II again was a surefire way to ensure Vanguard remained a relatively quiet entry to the series. I'll definitely be getting Vanguard at some point during its life cycle, but it didn't do too much to leave a lasting impression on me or really get me amped about the game's release. That cannot be said for the next game I'll be talking about, Halo Infinite. So, like a lot of people in my generation, Halo was my first love when it came to first-person shooters. Specifically for me, Halo CE. Well, okay, Halo Trial. So, while my tastes have shifted and I enjoy more reaction-based shooters and precision shooters like Halo, I still have a soft spot for this series and enough knowledge of the franchise to know that Halo Infinite is what fans have been waiting for. Visually, the game maintains its classic bright and vibrant look that courses through all the game's veins. Usually. And while it's not really a step up from Halo 5, the game clearly has a much larger scope than its predecessors, and what Infinite lacks in introducing brand new ideas, it gains in reintroducing previous ideas in a more modern and fresh way. For instance, the equipment. Previously borderline useless or borderline unbeatable, the new equipment is... okay, it's kind of the same deal, but much more interesting. There's been loads of buzz around the grappling hook and the repulsor, and for good reason. These equipment dynamically change the game in such fun and interesting ways, and while I'd like some balancing to bring them closer to the other pieces of equipment, I know deep down that these will be remembered fondly as the defining feature of Halo Infinite. The gunplay thankfully feels very much like Halo. While I enjoyed playing Halo 5, it was clearly too fast and too floaty for a Halo title. Halo Infinite feels heavier and more impactful, while not allowing itself to revert to the sluggishness that was felt in, say, Halo 3. And with Flume that makes sense from a balance perspective, but doesn't fly off the handle after 2 shots like in Reach. It's a great middle ground between what felt good in Halo 5 and what made the earlier games in the franchise unique. The guns themselves, I didn't really care for them. I respect what they're going for with most of the guns here, especially the Skewer, but I would much rather have had updates on all our favorite guns, and not a Reach-esque shoveling of unknown samey weapons around. The gunfire itself sounded just okay too. There were clearly some attempts to make them sound like updated versions of the classic sounds, but most of them sounded flat and had none of the pop or unique sounds that made the original weapon special. Sure, a lot of them sounded like automatic staple guns, but hey, they sure were memorable. The same can't really be said about the maps though. I thought they were all well designed, both visually and gameplay wise, but none of them really stuck out to me as memorable and felt very, yep, this is a Halo map. At the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with that, and as long as they're fun to play, it'll do. The rest of Halo Infinite is honestly just good old Halo fun. The gunplay is familiar, the vehicles feel good to drive but don't deviate from how they played back in the day. The game maintains Halo's visual style, all while sprinkling in some of the good that was born from Halo 5's multiplayer. And the cherry on top, the multiplayer for Halo Infinite will be completely free. Yep, free. So with Battlefield and Vanguard still asking full price, we'll have to watch closely to see if Infinite comes and swallows up their player base with the prospect of, well, not spending money. Bringing the franchise back into line with itself and allowing players to play for free is a great way to get people to come back into the series, and hopefully this is a sign for good things to come from this struggling franchise. Alright guys, so that about does it for my thoughts on each beta. What did you think about the betas? Was I too harsh on Battlefield, too lenient on Halo? Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and thanks for watching.